This episode of the Southwest of Center podcast is being brought to you by our exclusive sponsor, Cochise Country Music Festival, March 20th through the 22nd at the Forever Ranch in Benson. Country Western headliners include Rodney Atkins on Friday, Tracy Byrd on Saturday, and Mark Chestnut on Sunday. Gates open at 1 p.m. daily. There's RV and other camping. Friday and Saturday, there will be an after party until 1 a.m. Go to Cochise.countryfest.com. That's Cochise.countryfest.com for more information and tickets. No matter who you are, what you do, or where you live, a data center is probably coming to a location near you, and it's going to have impacts. We're all going to have to deal with it. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am your host for this episode of the Southwest of Center podcast, and today we've got a topic that you cannot ignore because no matter where you are, what you do, or what you think of them, a data center is going to come to a location near you. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Joining me is someone who's taking this very seriously and has an interesting take on, how this is going to work, is Frank Antenori, our county supervisor from District 3. Frank, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Now, you've been on the board how many months?
Oh, a little over a year and 2 months right now with that.
but who's county, right?
Yeah.
Well, I met you. I actually met you before, but I met you during the debates that we had in the area.
Sure.
I was very impressed with how you articulated the issues. And before we get to data centers, which is a huge issue, I want to set this up a little bit, and that is with the discussion we were having before we came on for the podcast, and that has to do with state revenues of all kinds, and why that's such a critical issue, and why we can't ignore the issue of data centers. How are the two tied together?
If you want your roads paved, if you want to have a police department or a sheriff's office, if you want the services like the health department that inspects your restaurants to make sure you're eating clean, healthy food. If you want all those services, you have to have a mindset to grow the economy, because the way Arizona functions is we have state shared revenue. So when you go and spend money and you pay the sales tax, the TPT, that money goes to the state, and then it's distributed by a formula back to the counties and cities based on population. So if your population isn't growing, which is the case in Cochise County, we've been steady about 125 to 127,000 people for the last 30 years.
Let me point out, we've been steady while other areas have been growing exponentially.
Exactly. So when the state population was 4 million people, and we were at 125,000, the percentage that we would get was a decent amount of percentage. But now the state population is 7 million.
Right.
And we're still at the same number of people. So we're getting about 40% less of the state shared revenue.
And look at Pinal, Maricopa, areas like
exactly.
that. Tucson. A lot of people don't realize this, Frank, but there are more than 2 million people in what I call the Tucson Bowl, not in the city limits, but in that region. It's astronomical.
So we are seeing a decline both at the city level and at the county level of state shared revenue here in Cochise County. Last week we had a meeting with our public works director, Jason Fascio, who fixes all the roads.
Right, and I find this fascinating.
Yeah,
about roads, the intersection. Tell us how that works.
So Fascio basically showed us his budget and the cost of oil going up, the cost of granite going up, the chip seal going up, the cost of labor going up, the cost of diesel fuel going up. All these costs are going up. And then on the other side, state shared revenue is going down. He's getting less and less money from the gas tax, the HERF revenue, the Highway User Revenue Fund, that funds our road maintenance in this county. Again, that's a distributed shared revenue, and it's based on population and the number of vehicles you have registered in your county. So if you're not growing population, you're sure as heck not growing the number of vehicles. So by default, the amount of money you get goes down every year. So
and I have to point out, people don't think about this.
No.
The wear and tear on the roadways is the same no matter what, on all the infrastructure. So you have to keep pace, but you can't do that when you have declining revenues.
Right.
It's
exactly.
that simple.
It's real simple. So as Maricopa County grows, as Pinal County grows, as Pima County grows, the percentage of money we get from those taxes goes down. and we get less and less and less money every year. So the only two solutions to fix that is, one, grow our own economy where we have enough local tax revenue to fund those things by creating economic growth, and two, create more population by putting more people in Cochise County and having them register more vehicles. We'll get a bigger share of the money. The latter is actually harder to do than the previous. It's easier to bring business in here and start generating local property taxes and local sales taxes, like we have at the local level. The county has a 1 cent sales tax, and I think Benson has a 2.5 cent sales tax. So that money goes and stays here. That money that's generated from that, and of course from property taxes. Big businesses generally have a high dollar value property, and they're assessed differently. So your residence is assessed at a 10% assessment ratio. 10% of the assessed value is what you're taxed on. But businesses are at 15%. So they're 50% more than residences when it comes to property taxes.
I want to interject because when we say business, people think of a Walmart or something like that, but industry too is a huge tax base.
Any commercial or industrial,
like APCO.
Any commercial or industrial business is going to be taxed at the business assessed value rate of 15%. Residents, houses where people live, are taxed at the 10% of the assessed value ratio. So if you bring a big company in here, let's just say, we do land a data center. That data center's roughly worth $1 billion. The assessment ratio is going to be $150 million. So they're going to be taxed on $150 million. You know how many houses, Jeff, you would have to build to offset that? You're talking about 40,000 some odd houses to replace and create that tax base. So those that are, I hunt and I understand the environmental aspects, and I have the same concern as others. But if you look at what's worse, a sprawl of, subdivisions everywhere, or one small, tightly built area where you have a huge amount of tax base on a small parcel of land versus covering, the county with houses and whatnot. I would rather generate the tax revenue from a small, square mile area than having, to deal with subdivisions. Nothing against subdivisions, just that's not you don't build an economy by building subdivisions.
No,
it's just not
and they have to work somewhere. They have to get the infrastructure somewhere. So I want to interject something in here so that people understand this is not a local issue. It's a national issue. It's something that they have no choice. I mean, they have a choice on how these things are going to be developed and built and where. But when I say people have no choice, they have no choice in whether they come or not. They are coming. Elon Musk has stated publicly he wants to dominate the AI industry. And to do that, he said, I'm going to need lots and lots of power and data centers all over the country. Well, what does that mean? That means that they're going to go somewhere. Now, we have to be ready for it, and I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's the smart. I want to do it the smart way. I want to do it the right way, and anybody that knows me will know I don't do anything secretly. We're doing all this in the open, 100% transparent.
Well, that's one of the reasons you wanted to be here.
Right, 100% transparency. So I don't want to hear the crying that, we weren't aware of this, we didn't know about it, because you're going to know about it, because I'll make sure you know about it, because I've been out front and center trying to get people to understand that there's a way to do this the right way, a way to do this the smart way. And that's what the county is doing right now. We're having those discussions to develop our planning and zoning ordinance. In addition, our rules for our special use permits to provide the permitting for data centers and their associated power supply. Like you mentioned, power is a critical component of this. And what I saw, what went down with the Project Blue in Pima County, is the way they set that up was, the local utility there was TEP Unisource.
Yeah.
And they had to put a lot of infrastructure in to provide that power. And what they did, which I think they shouldn't have done, was shift some of that burden to the residential ratepayer.
I think it was going to be 17% of that was going to go to the
and that
ratepayer.
angered a lot of people, and rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Well, let me mention something here so people understand how this works, and that is that if a utility is going to do something that's going to add to the ratepayer's base rate, the utility has to go to the ACC to get approval. And the way things are, that's going to be a tough sell no matter what, but the public is going to come out against it. If it is going to have a direct impact on their electrical bill, they're going to be against it. And a way around that has to be found. And I want to get into a little bit of the conversation that President Trump had last week about this very issue. And I know you don't want to see it done in such a way that adds to the utility bills of the average person, right?
Right.
So how do we avoid that?
So some of the companies that have reached out to us and are talking with us are wanting to be off-grid. So they want to build their own power plant structure. Some of them want to put in gas turbine generators because we have the new 48-inch natural gas pipeline about to come through the county.
Right.
Right through here, as a matter of fact, right through Benson. And then they also want to build solar, and that is only a temporary process until the small batch or small modular reactors come online that the president is pushing right now, and they're gonna probably start issuing permits in about 3 years, and then it's going to take a couple years to build them. So you're looking at about 7 to 10 years before you can get these small modular reactors.
Did you see his presentation with all the tech companies?
Oh yeah, I know.
Fascinating.
They all have their own reactor designs that they're pushing through the Department of Energy right now because their intent is to build these things side by side.
And it is going to happen.
Yes, it's going to happen. They are power hungry. You do not want to stress your grid with a data center. So the only logical solution is to develop your own power plant, and that's what these companies want to do. So when they
that's what Trump said he's going to do is facilitate that process.
Right, there will not be an impact to your electric bill. So to alleviate all the fear mongering and all the escalation of exaggerated claims that is going to come from this, that is not going to happen. They will not touch it because when one of the local power companies wants to raise rates, like you said, they got to go to the CorpCom. When they go to the CorpCom, what they generally say is, I had to add another generator. I had to add this many more miles of transmission line. I had to add step downs and step ups and transformers and all this stuff adds a cost. So they say, this is what my new infrastructure cost is. Then I have to maintain that. Then they say, this is what it costs me to maintain that. And then of course, some of them, unless they're a co-op, some of them like TEP or APS, they make a profit. They're allowed a certain amount for profit. And then they make that case, that rate case to the CorpCom, and the CorpCom will say, okay, you can or can't raise your rates. But if they don't have that infrastructure related to data centers on their books, that doesn't get passed on to the ratepayer. So either the power companies, and we're going to be having some meetings about this here in the next couple of weeks, the power companies will set up a separate system that is not connected with their primary grid that provides residential power, and that secondary system will provide power exclusively for data centers, so it will not affect the residential ratepayers. So you will not see an increase in your utility rate from the data center. And then other entities will build their own power plants right next to their data centers, and that will be an off-grid, either a big solar field or a group of gas turbine generators.
Even if they start with solar fields, they're going to have to go to gas generators because there's not going to be enough land for the solar fields that would be required to power these things.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that because the tariffs on China have been so effective, that it is forcing a lot of solar panel manufacturing and R&D back into the United States, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
One of the data centers that we spoke with, a company out of Las Vegas, has actually said they are buying a solar panel manufacturing company in Arizona, and will be building the solar panels here in Arizona for their data centers.
It'll augment the power.
To augment the power.
The power,
but it won't be hooked to the grid. They specifically don't want to be hooked to the grid. They are going to build a battery farm for at night, and then the daytime the solar panels will power the data center and charge the batteries, and then at night obviously they'll run off the batteries, and then they'll have a gas turbine backup generator. That's their plan.
Well, I'm sure you get this kind of contact, but here at Economic Development Group, and by the way, I'm not part of EDG. This is privately owned. I always have to make that disclaimer. But Economic Development Group gets inquiries probably one a week at least about, hey, do you have something set up and infrastructure and land available for a data center? And that there are hundreds of companies that are doing this now.
Yeah. And again, we've been looking at these new data centers that don't require a lot of water, which is the other fear mongering.
That's the other, yeah.
Yeah. So they're screaming, oh, it's going to raise all our electric bills. And then they're saying, oh, it's going to suck all our water. Once they're constructed and once they're up and running, they use very little water, somewhere around 15 to 20,000 gallons a year, which is the equivalent of 3 residential households. And it's just for their basic functions, flushing the toilets, maintenance, cleaning, and once.
Yeah, they're not cooled with water.
They're air cooled. Yeah,
right.
They're air cooled. They're air conditioned, but that requires
Power.
more electricity, and they will size their power plant, whether that's a solar power plant or a gas turbine power plant, and in the future a nuclear power plant to do that. And what people don't understand is just if you look at the tax revenue that Maricopa County gets from the Palo Verde nuclear power plant, it is astounding. The property tax revenue. So all of those people that are against nuclear power, but for whatever crazy reason, maybe they still think Jane Fonda was right when she did that movie. And she set back this country with that movie.
3 Mile Island.
Decades. The new reactors are very safe. We've been putting them in aircraft carriers and submarines for years, these small modular reactors. So this is something that there's companies out there, whether it's General Electric or others that manufacture these things, know how to build them. And they're very safe. And they are purely clean energy. They don't emit anything. Right. So they're probably one of the best forms of, and they don't take up a lot of space. You're not going to be covering 5 square miles with solar panels, right? This is a small 20-acre nuclear power plant, right? So that is the future. And we have to embrace that and start planning for that now.
We
because
have to be ready for it,
the permits for that and the sightings for those are all getting put together now, because in 3 years, when the Department of Energy starts issuing the permits to go build, we have to have that ready to go. So we're trying to plan ahead here. We're trying to get in front of this and lean forward in the foxhole, for lack of a better terms.
I like that.
To get ready for this coming, rather than being reactionary, where bad things usually happen when you're jumping through your rear end trying to get stuff done. So we're thinking ahead. We're doing the smart thing. It's coming, so let's be prepared for it. Let's do it the right way. Let's get the public input. Let's get the concerns. Let's try to alleviate those concerns. Let's mitigate those concerns. Make sure these companies put things in place that will also mitigate those concerns as best as possible. But what people also need to understand, state law and federal law does not allow you to prohibit them. So that for those out there that say, hey, let's just put out a thing that we're going to ban data centers, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Well,
it's against the law.
It wouldn't stand up anyway.
No, it wouldn't stand up. And private property rights, too, in this country are critical. You'll get sued if you do that. And we've seen several other cities and counties being sued for playing those games where they claim, oh, we're going to just ban it and not allow it. And then all of a sudden they're facing a $20, $30, $40 million lawsuit. Which
going to the Supreme Court.
Would bankrupt a town like Benson. That would bankrupt Benson. Yeah.
All right, Frank, I want to go back to the idea of transparency, because it's so easy to find out what's going on. I went online. I printed out everything that the county had to do with data centers. I want to point out that you're having hearings, public meetings
for the next
along the way.
6 months. Yeah.
And the next one, I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit, because this podcast will air at different times. But the next one that I want to reference is a public hearing on Tuesday, April 7th. Okay. You're having some between now and then, but this podcast might air after. So, people can go online is my point. And I want to read something here. There must be 40 pages here.
Yeah.
Covers the whole process by detail, step by step. So all people have to do is look it up.
What irritates me, Jeff, is people who blame their lack of attention or their laziness on the government for not being transparent. It just irritates the living daylights out of me. We publish everything on the county website, every agenda with topics. We add attachments to those agendas where you can link under each agenda item to that attachment that tells you exactly what it is. You just got to do it, right?
That's right.
This is America. You're supposed to, if you want to be spoon-fed, you could go somewhere else and get spoon-fed in some other socialist or communist country where the government just tells you everything that's going on. But this is America. It requires some initiative on your own. And when I was watching what was going down here with regard to the aluminum dynamics plant, and let's just be straight up, the city of Benson followed the law. They published everything. Their planning and zoning meetings were all published as required by law. They put the notices in the local paper, the Sierra Vista Herald, which by law, people don't understand, by law, that is the paper of record for Cochise County. So all public notices are published in the Sierra Vista Herald. And so they followed the law. They did it by the book. And yet people say, oh, there was all this secrecy. We didn't know about it. Well, you got to go to the city's website and read the agendas and you gotta pay
Track
attention.
it and keep,
Yeah, you gotta pay
instead of
attention.
saying,
But
well, they hit it up to a certain point.
No, they
but
didn't hide nothing. Just like, they're trying to say the same thing now, that we're hiding stuff. We're not hiding anything.
It's all right here.
Yeah.
I want to read something to you, okay? Because I think this speaks directly to what a lot of people are going to protest over. Utilities and infrastructure. This is number 9 of the first section of what's been published. The applicant shall demonstrate that adequate utility services are available or will be provided without adversely impacting existing users. Potable water used for cooling. Potable water shall not be used for routine cooling or humidification unless the applicant demonstrates through the water use plan that non-potable or reclaimed water is not reasonably available or feasible. But that won't be an issue if they take care of it themselves.
Right.
They can't, and if they're air cooled, then the big issue is going to be the power. The county may condition approval to require non-potable or reclaimed water where reasonably available and require metering and periodic reporting. That's going to be required. So I just wanted to point out, and I'm going to skip ahead here because, like I said, there's a lot of material. But this, if that doesn't convince you, I'm going to show this on camera. Development services, water, electricity, and fire safeguards. Well, if you go to the county's website, you can print out all this material that will give you all the detail on what the county is going to be requiring. And I want to hit again electricity. Applicants shall demonstrate adequate electric service capacity. And in 99% of cases, as I understand it, that's going to be up to the applicant themselves.
Yeah, and in many cases, I'll give you an example. In Navajo County, they just started this process as well. They have a company that's coming in there to put in a large solar field that's going to power a data center. When they started that permit process, they came to the county and said, look, there's certain infrastructure we are going to need. They're going to need a specialized fire department because lithium batteries have certain firefighting concerns that you don't have with the wood
Right.
and steel structures. So they said, we're going to give you $2 million to be able to go to the local fire department or fire district to buy the equipment necessary. We don't want the taxpayers to pay for this. So they actually gave Navajo County the money to put into the fire district that was in that area where this was going to go. So that fire district got a new fire truck. They got training for all their firemen on how to deal with these types of fires. They got new specialized equipment to fight lithium battery fires, and then spill and contamination containment equipment to make sure that they don't get into the environment. So they got all of that equipment that was upfront, no cost to the taxpayers. It was a donation by these companies. That it's a benefit to both, right? It's a benefit to the community because now those firemen and that fire truck can be used for other fires, not just at this place. But it's also there if that company were to need it. Of course, hopefully they have other measures in place to prevent that from happening, so they never have it happen. But if they do, it's there. So they don't want to put that burden on these guys. And then the other thing is they put money into the local school districts. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. Property tax revenue, half of that money is going to go to education between the public school system and the community college system here in Cochise County would benefit dramatically from that property tax revenue. People forget that. Everybody looks at the county tax. The county tax is roughly a third of your tax bill. The rest of it is local government and schools, and
that's something that people don't realize.
No.
I know of 2 schools that were shut down by the counties because they couldn't come up with the revenue to keep them going. They had to move the students into different schools. They're rural counties. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but that's
where we're going.
It's a huge issue. I know.
That's where we're going.
I know. You probably know the counties I'm talking about, but it's a very real issue. So let's deal with what I would call is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Should a data center be allowed? And from what I read here, it won't be allowed. But should a data center be allowed within a certain distance, or be forced to be a certain distance away from a municipal or city center?
Well, what we're looking at is residents. Houses.
So how's
we're
that
trying to keep them as far away.
There's some distance requirements here.
We're gonna try our best to see at least 2 miles away from the nearest household and create a buffer so as not to impact quality of life of people and their property values. I don't think it will have a detrimental effect. Talking to the county assessor, generally what happens is it actually increases property values because of the economic development that sprouts up around these data centers. It generally raises property value. But for the most part, we're just to prevent nuisances or annoyances such as noise or other things like that. From the research we've done, if you separate that as much as you can from a residential area, like subdivisions I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the isolated one farmhouse thing. I'm talking about you want to be at least 2 miles away from major populated areas so that you don't have this broad nuisance that people sometimes, if you have turbines, you can hear the whine of the turbines or the hum of the equipment that's in there. It's a frequency hum. So if you're at least 2 miles away, that negates that and reduces. If you get further than that, it's even better. But 2 is probably the minimum that we're going to try to be away.
So I'm going to deal with this too. There are people who are going to say that we're having this discussion because you and county and municipal officials or whatever have got something in the works, and so you're trying to get ahead of it. But we're not talking about an imminent data center. We don't have one that's being proposed for construction.
Not yet.
You're just trying to lay the groundwork.
Right.
Let's be absolutely clear about that.
So as you said in your intro, they're coming, right? Our demand as individuals for data has increased almost 700% since the inception of the cell phone, let's just say, and the laptop computer.
By the way, people that oppose data centers don't realize they are what they have to have.
I'll give you an example. I worked in the aerospace industry for 21 years, and we began to rely on digital tools to save time and money and to improve quality of what we built there. And now we rely almost exclusively on modeling and simulation. What used to be, stuff that used to do from your laptop computer in your office can't be done on your laptop anymore. You have to go to a server farm because some of these simulations are very complex. So over the 21 years that I was out there, they ended up building an entire building just to build servers so that we could do modeling and simulation for the various different dynamics that a missile or an unmanned aircraft will see when it's in flight. And we model all that before we scratch one piece of metal, before we cut one piece of aluminum or drill one hole. All of that's done in the 3D world, and it's all modeled. In order to do that, you have to have a data center. So
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I've been hearing. Yeah. Why do we need data centers? Why do we need AI?
So they built, technically, you want to think about it, they built a data center in order to do that because these companies, and again, small companies 20 years ago was a big thing when they had, a couple computers in the office. But nowadays, they have to set up these server farms and have server access because of the amount of data, the emails, the videos, the PowerPoint presentations, the 3D engineering CAD design systems that are very complex.
Well, let's talk about what's driving this.
All data driven.
AI.
Yeah.
AI. Everything you're talking about is now being engineered through AI or some form thereof. And these tech leaders, these tech commandos, I call them, they want to lead the AI field. And for that, they're going to need power. They're going to need the data. It's that simple. Whoever wins the AI race is going to dominate. And I mean, can dominate the country in many ways, not in a bad way, but in terms of business and technology development and everything else that we rely on. This thing right here, 5 years from now is going to be totally different. It's going to be AI driven almost completely.
Right.
So, and how many people out there are willing to give these up if
Nobody.
they say, oh, well, I don't want a data center because it's going to be bad for us?
Yeah, nobody.
What they don't realize is this thing right here is going to be driving, this is just a small part of it, but the technology in this is going to be driving that race, and nobody's going to give up their cell phone saying, oh, well, gee, I don't want it.
It's not just that. It's your computers, right? It's
I'm picking something small.
Yeah, if you look at people that everybody's streaming, right? I mean, I don't know anybody anymore that has a cable company unless you live in Tucson or maybe Sierra Vista or something. But most people I know have like Starlink, all right, or they've got fiber coming to their house from Valley Telecom, and they're on Hulu. They're on all these streaming, Netflix and Paramount and all these streaming services. Well, where do you think that stuff is stored? In some magic, maybe they really think there's a cloud in the sky where this stuff is stored, but it's not. It's actually stored in a data center. And the convenience is that I laugh at my sons. I don't want to beat up my two boys, but
Go ahead.
you and I, when we were growing up, we learned from our grandfathers and our fathers how to do stuff, right? We were taught. So when I couldn't figure something out, even to this day, like my dad used to be an electrician, so I'll call my dad up and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm rewiring something in my barn. Hey, I'm putting 240 and I got these two. I got a red, green, and a black and a white wire. But the plug's only got three things. There's four
Two of them
wires.
combined.
Which ones do I connect? Right. So that's stuff that. But my kids go straight to the phone. They go to YouTube.
Yeah.
And they'll say, okay, how do you wire a 240 volt 3-pin connector? And it says, this is how you wire it, right? So everybody relies on that now.
I'm going to say a word that 90% of the audience won't remember. Abacus.
I learned that in kindergarten.
I learned that when I was in third grade.
Kindergarten, the teacher started sliding, stuff across on the abacus. It's just astonishing. We predate the cell phone. We predate the computer.
And you know what? Now we rely on them like anything else.
I have 3 phones, Jeff.
Oh my God.
I have 3 phones. I have like 4 laptops. It's just the future, and everything's got to be separated, right?
I hate to say it.
You got them here on your desk,
I've got
right?
a computer here and 2 computers right here because they all provide me with different information.
That's right.
That computer right there is AI driven. With this studio setup, I can sit off in another room and control everything, and it's all AI.
Right. And people don't understand our reliance on data and how, but this stuff doesn't literally exist in the cloud up in the air. It's in a building somewhere. And the question, and these buildings generate a lot of money. Now they do create jobs, not a lot of jobs. They do create jobs, but what they really create is the secondary economy. And that's what people don't understand. As that money comes into the county, you create jobs for just at the county level. We're going to need more sheriff's deputies. So we can fund those sheriff's deputies. You want more public safety? We can give you more public safety. Now we have the revenue coming into the county where I can give Sheriff Daniels more money to hire more deputies instead of them leaving and going to Pinal County, which is happening now. We can't. Some of our best civilian employees, our public servants, are leaving Cochise County for greener pastures in Pinal County, and it's hurting us. It's hurting us as a county.
I want to drive this home in a very basic grassroots way. Had Sheriff Daniels here about 6 weeks ago. He talked about the size of Cochise County that he's responsible for.
3 states.
Yes, larger than 3 states.
Yeah.
And his challenge is just staffing. So that people pick up the phone, they dial 911 in the county. They want people to show up. They want deputies to show up. It ain't going to happen if we don't have the revenue. It's that simple.
As a constitutional officer, he is empowered by the state, and I am obligated by the state to provide him the resources to do his job. Mm-hmm. And I want to do that. We gave our sheriff's deputies a 3% pay raise this past year. I want to keep those. I want to keep those guys here. To keep them here, you got to pay them. Or they're gonna when they see a $67,000 a year starting salary and an $85,000 a year average salary after 5 years in Pinal County. Guess what? If they're only making $55,000 here, $30,000 more a year if they move an hour away.
And who can blame them?
Yeah, who can
Most
blame
of them?
They're
have
trying
families,
to exactly.
Yeah,
they're trying to pay their mortgages. They're trying to put their kids in a good school. So you can't blame a guy for doing. And we're not just that. We're losing good public servants too, people that pave our roads, people that run our health department, people that do the basic functions of government here in Cochise County are getting offered. City manager in Santan is going to start at about $175,000 a year. My county administrator is making like $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you're looking at people that are
and the money's well deserved, by the way.
Yeah,
because they're running huge.
We run Sharon Ragan.
Yeah,
Ragan.
Well, good. Keep doing it.
She works her tail off. But I mean, the reality is you cannot stagnate. And everybody that says, well, I don't want nothing to change, you're actually changing a lot. You are going backwards. You're degrading your infrastructure. You're degrading your quality of life. You're degrading the skill sets necessary to perform basic functions in your community, the functions that everybody demands. They want a competent police officer to show up when they call 911. They want the fire company to show up when their house catches fire. They want their roads paved so the fire truck can get there, right? They want all this stuff, but this stuff doesn't just fall from the sky. You have to create the economic growth. You have to create the population. If we continue to go down in population as compared to the rest of the state, we are going to suffer dramatically.
I hear this all the time from people who haven't been here that long, that they don't want to lose the small town charm. I was born and raised here. I left for 28 years, traveled the country, had a great career, but I came back and it still has that small town charm. We're not going to lose that.
Sure.
We're not going to lose that.
You have people.
It's the people that make it
right.
work.
You have folks, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but you have folks that created their economic opportunity elsewhere that are moving into this area now.
Yes, good point.
They made a lot of money elsewhere, and now they come here. They buy a $500,000 home in Dragoon Mountain Ranch, or they buy a nice house down Ocotillo, off the back end of Ocotillo somewhere, or Pomeranian Roads, or they made their money elsewhere, and now they come here, and then they say, well, I don't want anybody else. If it results in me having to deal with various infrastructure going in, I don't want anybody else to benefit from what I benefited elsewhere. I don't want families in Cochise County to get jobs. I move to Tucson if you want to get a job. Move to Phoenix if you want to get a job. And then move back. After 50 years goes by, then move back, and then we'll be okay with that.
I actually had someone say that to me.
It astounds me, the selfishness that these people have, where they want to deny our families and our kids and our grandkids that same opportunity economically that they benefited from here in our local community, and they want them to move away. They want them to go somewhere else. Go make your money somewhere else and then come back, but don't make it here.
Right.
Don't have a good family life here. Don't have prosperity here. We don't want prosperity here. We just want everybody over 65 to move here and buy a nice house. And that's what we want.
And leave it alone,
And leave us alone. That is not going to work. And it's selfish, Jeff. It's a very selfish attitude. I got mine. Screw you. Go somewhere else and get yours. Don't get it here. That is a very selfish attitude. And that's what's unfortunately permeating here. And we have to let the people out there know, if you want economic opportunity, if you want your kids to get a job, if you want, and we just saw the 300 people that applied for jobs over here at Aluminum Dynamics, 65 jobs, 300 people showed up for 65 jobs. I mean, that shows you people in this county and in this town are hungry for work. And to have someone say, screw those 300 people, go to Tucson if you want to find a job. The arrogance and the selfishness just astonishes me.
There were people, I don't know if you know this or not, but I've talked to several people who were there, and there were a couple of individuals who opposed the growth, and they were standing outside the fence line at the school.
Trying to get a job?
No.
Oh.
They were yelling expletives at the people that were showing up to apply for those ADI jobs.
You're kidding me.
No, they were saying, well, I don't want to go into it, but using, dropping the F-bomb. The thing is, there was a wrestling tournament going on at the same time. And the reason I found out about this was because a mother called me and said, did you know this happened? She told me in great detail that they were taking their kids to this wrestling tournament, had to run the gauntlet, let's say, near these individuals who were screaming at the applicants for the ADI jobs, and they were not even a part of that, but they were subjected
to see their kids' wrestling match.
Yeah, that kind of abuse.
But what another thing that irritates me is these people grossly exaggerate, right? And that's my concern with the data centers. That's why we're trying to be as transparent as possible, and we're trying to lay, as you have there, all the groundwork so it's out and open for everybody to see. We don't want people to get the narrative and get everybody spun up in this county and with bad information and wrong information. And some of these folks that have been opposing this aluminum plant in Benson are just flat wrong. And they're preaching doom and gloom, and they're everybody's going to get cancer, everybody's going to die. And there's data from comparable facilities all over the country that negates that and says that no, that's not what happens. But when this facility gets built and these guys are production, I wonder if these people will come back after their air monitors show that all the terrible things they claimed was going to happen aren't happening.
Maybe not, but we will.
Yeah, they're not going to come out and admit that they were wrong and that they spun everybody up for nothing. And it's
so dealing with the transparency issue, docket R26-01. I want people that might be concerned about this to remember. Docket R2601. If you just Google Cochise County supervisors, data centers, they can then pick up the trail and go to this documentation. That's all there is to it.
Cochise.az.gov.
Yep.
Go to the county website, cochise.az.gov, and you'll see right in front, there's agendas right there. You can click on it. It tells you all the meetings we're going to be having. You can click on just the search tab, like you said, and just search data centers in the search tab, and it'll pull all this information
Well,
up.
it took me 5 minutes to get all this material
But you
together.
took the effort, Jeff.
Well, I knew I was going to be talking to you.
You let your fingers do the walking, which people may not remember what that was. But now the fingers do the walk-in on your computer. But I mean,
we're dating ourselves
yeah,
here.
we are. But it's just that we've got to get people to understand. Nobody's trying to hide nothing. Nobody. And the other thing that irritates me is they say, "Oh, your pockets are getting lined by these guys, right? You're being paid off." And I'd say I wish I knew where that money was because I'm not seeing any of it. Right? I'm just trying to do something good for my community and my county here. And I want to do it right. I want to plan ahead. Nobody, that's the way they disparage people. They try to paint this picture that you have genuine, heartfelt desires to do good for this community, and they want to spin that backwards and say you're somehow corrupt because you want to make the county better.
You may not know this, but George Scott, who you know very well, was mayor 2 terms, 8 years of the city of Benson some years back. He is one of the most principled and honest people I know. Period.
Right.
And during the ADI thing, he was accused, and I stayed out of the fray until this happened, but he was publicly accused from several different sources of being on the take, of taking kickbacks from ADI to support it. And so I decided to jump in. Man, I tell you, these people are brutal. They made a baseless accusation that had no foundation.
I'm surprised
in fact,
George didn't sue them.
Well, he should have. I told him. I told him he should have. But I did 2 podcasts on that very topic, talking about why that was so wrong. My dad was a principled man. He never would have done that. He might have come down and talked to George and tried to figure out why he was in favor of it, but he never would have called him names or accused him of being on the take. It's just ridiculous.
It's the new style, right? So you got to attack the messenger because the message is in some cases not attackable, right? So they got to attack the messenger, and they think by attacking the messenger they'll affect the message. So
no, it just makes them stronger.
Personal attacks is especially sitting in your underwear in your mom's basement, on a keyboard. Being the keyboard warrior is jump in if you want to jump into the fray, come on in. If you got and I tell this to people, I said, you have a better idea, I'm all ears. That's what these meetings are for. If you have a better way to create economic growth in Cochise County, if you have another idea, come talk to us. I have an economic development plan the county is getting. We're looking at other things besides data centers. That's just one piece.
And I know you're willing to talk about any of it.
We want to build here in Benson. We'd like to put some commercial capability here because we're close to Tucson. We could put some commercial businesses here out by the airport, just off of I-10. We could put more retail here. Right? People say all the time, "Oh, well, we don't have any Costco's, we don't have any Sam's Clubs." Well, that's because you don't have the population, right? And you don't have the money. Sam's Club ain't coming here. Costco ain't coming here unless you can show you have the revenue in the area to support a Costco. Well, let's get that revenue here. Let's get that here so that we can have nicer things in Cochise County, so we don't have to drive all the way to Tucson. To get people want more doctors here. I was over at Benson Hospital getting some blood work, and I was talking to this lady, and she was talking about how she's got to go to Tucson for all her doctor's appointments, and how she was so happy that TMC now has a CAT scan here that she can get her CAT scan. She used to have to go to Tucson. I said, well, that's here because as we get more revenue that comes into the county, those services can expand more into Cochise County. So you don't have to go to Tucson to see your doctor anymore.
And I want to
get more doctors here.
I want to say Benson Hospital, which is affiliated with Wilcox, TMC Health, they're doing an incredible job.
And people don't realize they get it. There's a hospital district tax in your property taxes that a lot of money from that funds these hospitals. So everybody benefits from the tax revenue generated from these types of industries that come in here. It goes to the hospital district. It goes to the fire district. It goes to the city. It goes to the county. It goes to the school districts. It goes to the Cochise County Community College. All of those will benefit. So everybody that's fighting that, I guess you're anti-fire, anti-police, anti-school,
Anti-good health care.
Anti-good health care, because that's what you're doing. You really, and it's selfishness, Jeff. The selfishness of these people. I got my little American dream. Screw everybody else that's trying to pursue theirs. That's the attitude that's out there. And we've got to expose that this is not healthy Americanism, right? Americanism is you want to pursue the American dream. You want to have a home. You want to have a family. You want to raise your kids. You want to have a good job that you can have for 20,
But you
30.
want to do it in such a way that other people can enjoy that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just people who make their millions in Los Angeles or Chandler or Phoenix and then move out here and say, well, I had my economic opportunity. Screw everybody else. If you want that, you got to leave. You got to go somewhere else. And it just irritates the daylights out of me. It's just really the selfish attitude, the arrogance and the self-entitlement, that a lot of these folks have just irritates the living crap out of me.
Yeah, well, I couldn't tell.
No, and I challenge them on it. I don't hesitate one bit, and I don't need this job. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm financially independent. I don't need this job. Right? I gave up a high 6-figure salary and retired in August to get this job. I was making 3 times, 4 times more than what I'm making as a county supervisor. I'm not doing this job for the money.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm doing it because I saw over the last 10 years, I used to represent this county 20 years ago when I was in the legislature, when I was a state senator, parts of.
Weren't you president of the Senate at
I
one
was
point?
The majority whip.
Yeah. Okay.
The majority whip.
Right. Yeah.
So Senate leadership the whip has a lot of power. I just didn't realize every bill that goes to the floor had to go through me. So every appointment for every government agency, for the Supreme Court, Superior Courts, all came through me.
Right, yeah.
And if I didn't want it to go to the floor.
Well, you developed a reputation.
Well, I just want to see positive.
I mean, in a positive way.
Yeah, I want to see positive things. So I come from the wing of the Republican Party that believes in governance. Okay, I'm not from the wing of the party that likes to just blow stuff up, or the wing of the party that just likes to say no. I actually understand government has a function and a purpose. Its first function and first and foremost is to protect individual liberty. That's the sole purpose. Right out of Article 2, Section 2 in our state constitution. Of course, it's in the preamble of our constitution. Our goal is to protect individual liberty. And then the next part is to promote the pursuit of happiness. That is the next part
for
of
everyone,
government.
not just those who got theirs.
That's right. So we have to to do that, you have to lay the groundwork. To do that, you have to have the roads, you have to have the electricity, you have to have the sewer, you have to have the water, you have to have the police, you have to have the fire. These functions are necessary for everybody to pursue happiness and have their opportunity to grow. So there is a function and purpose of government. It needs to be limited so that we don't overburden taxpayers, but it needs to be focused and it needs to be put forth to create the conditions for success. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to do here. And if we can put businesses into this county that generate revenue that help raise that quality of life for everybody in the county, why would you be against that?
Because you're not in my backyard kind of person.
Right, right.
That's simple.
Cave people, the committee
Cave
against
people.
virtually everything. They just don't want nothing. And I get it. They got a lot of them have nothing else to do. They have a lot of free times on their hands, and they like to have the cause celeb.
A lot of it is virtue signaling, and I'm better than you are, and all that. So we could talk for a whole. In fact, let's have a podcast on that.
We could probably do that. But again, I'm trying to do this the right way. We're trying to plan ahead. Data
centers, they're in the works. There's nothing on paper right now, but
18 to 24 months from now.
Let's be ready for it.
We could see an inquiry in about 6 to 12 months, and then permitting in about 12 to 18 months, where people are going to ask to start permitting to be able to build one here in Cochise County.
Okay.
So that's why we're doing what we're doing now. We have to lay that. So when I talk to these guys and they inquire if Cochise County's open for business, they want to know what the rules are before they pour money.
And that's what you're doing.
That's what we're doing. They don't want us to move the goalposts on them halfway in the middle of the football game. They want to know what's the rules of the game, where's the end zone. I will come in, I will invest, and I will know where that end zone is. That's all they ask for. They say, we don't want to, matter of fact, we will do less than burden you. We will pay for our impact. We will compensate the fire departments. We will pay for roads. We will do whatever it is to help facilitate. We just want to know what the rules are and not have anybody change the rules. So that's what we're doing. We're laying down the rules. We're going to tell them, here's the zoning requirements. Here's the permitting process. Here's the permit requirements for the special use permits. Here's the rules you got to follow. And that's what we're setting up here.
And this will all happen with public input.
That's right.
Yeah.
Public input.
Frank, we've talked about some of the ins and outs of a rural economy and why we have to grow the economy and why we have to make sure we have parity with the larger population centers, which is what it is. And we've talked about data centers. What's the next topic for the next podcast?
Well, we've got the port of entry going in down in Douglas. There's going to be jobs created for there. We're looking at putting a small business hub in Sierra Vista that's going to be defense industries, these small startup defense companies that are popping up now.
All over the place.
All over the place. And the benefit of using the electronic proving ground as a test area and proving grounds for a lot of the stuff that these companies develop. I know the U of A is working hard to promote that, and they have like a lot of startups within the university system that they spin off, and we're trying to get that going. We're also looking at, this I-10 corridor here and, between Wilcox and Benson. I don't understand why we haven't had this aggressive desire to put additional retail in here off of the highway to benefit from the traffic that's.
Well, I think that's. I think we're going to start seeing.
Yeah,
that
we are.
develop.
We are.
Yeah.
We are going to see that. And then I know the mayor of Wilcox is hungry. I talked to Joe here. The mayor of Benson is hungry for more businesses here. And what people don't realize, you can lower taxes if you do this right. That's the other thing I want to get across. The county, we reduced the tax rate by 2% last year. We did a 2% rate cut for county property taxes. As we bring in more revenue, the law, it's actually in the law that we have a cap that we cannot exceed. It's based on population and inflation. When we spend up to that cap, if we bring in more revenue than we can spend, guess where that money by law has to go?
Yeah.
Back to the taxpayers.
Exactly.
We have to give that money back. So as we bring these industry in, we can actually reduce the residential tax burden on the residential taxpayers of this county, provide them the quality services that they demand, and at the same time benefit the economy of the county as a whole. That's the dream. The process to get there is starting now. Either you can jump on board and help influence that and steer
And
that,
guide it, yes,
or you could be the naysayer that's just going to stand there and just make a bunch of noise and effectively do nothing. So that's the challenge I have to the folks in this county. If you have a better idea, I'm not shy about looking at any other options. I'd love to see other options, other economic development opportunities. Let's talk about it. Come and see me. Find me at the county. You can go to my cochise.az.gov. Send me an email. My phone number's there. Call my secretary or call my cell phone. Give me a call. And if you want to sit down for a cup of coffee over here at Denny's and tell me your great economic
How about
plan,
at the Horseshoe next door?
Yeah, at the Horseshoe or wherever, talk Horseshoe or this new place that opened up right next door. What's this place called?
80 proof.
80 proof.
80
Yeah,
proof,
we
yeah.
ate there the other day. It was pretty nice.
Good
for
food,
lunch.
yeah.
So let's have that discussion. I'm all ears. I just don't want to hear no. That is the easiest answer in the world to give. Those of you that just come in and go, no, don't waste my time. Okay. You come in with we have a problem. We need a solution. Give me your solution. It could be different from mine. That's fine. I'll listen to you. But if you're one of those people to just say, no, I'm going to stick my head in the sand. Let's go. No. Don't bother wasting my time. I'm not here for that.
Well, listen, on that note, I think we'll wrap up. How long do you think we've been going? Take a guess.
30 minutes?
No. 60 already.
Oh, yeah. We've been here an hour already?
Yes, we've been here an hour.
Holy cow,
So
man.
I hope you've had a good time.
I've had a great time.
And, people ask, I retired 4 years ago. I had to find something to do. And I'd always thought about a podcast. And, people say, well, why'd you do this? Because it does require a lot the way I'm doing it, lining up
your nice studio
and everything else. The reason I'm doing it is because of this. I want a platform for local information, local issues. We hear so much about the national issues, but these issues are grassroots. They cannot be ignored. So I want to thank you for coming in and discussing it.
Yeah,
and
anytime.
We'll leave on that note. Folks, if you have any questions for Frank, you know where to find him. If you have any questions about the data centers, just What's the website again?
Cochise.az.gov.
.gov. That's where I went, and I couldn't remember it. Go to the website, and you can find it, docket R26-001. You can search it, and it'll come up. Data centers, everything's going to be there. So, Frank, thank you so much for being here, and going to have you back before too long. You're the first guy.
Happy to come back.
You're the first person I met who can talk more than me.
It's Italian, man. I can't help it. Italians, we talk with our hands and we talk 100 miles an hour.
All right.
So that's it.
Frank Antenori, Supervisor, District 3 Sales. Thank you so much for being here.
Anytime, Jeff. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We'll catch you next time.